On this episode of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast, we ask, what's the real goal of learning and how does AI help or hurt it? I share my thoughts on a powerful article by Rick Wormeli, plus updates on a free ChatGPT course, a handy Google Classroom grading feature, a major CoSpaces rebrand, and an insightful TED Talk for educators and parents. We talk forklifts, Roombas, bonsai trees, and real learning. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in, educators. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for everything you do for students. And thank you for joining us today for the Educational Duct Tape Podcast, your spot to hear about some educational technology news, some education news, some ideas for using technology to solve problems in the classroom, which is what educational duct tape really means, using technology as a tool to solve problems, and also hopefully for some giggles and smiles you're also here for as well as you listen. I feel like I just word saladed that a little bit like Yoda. I apologize if that didn't make any sense. I think you get the picture. This is episode 121 of the show. Currently, the cadence of the show is the odd-numbered episodes. I have what we call a soapbox moment here on the show, so that's today, followed by a couple of educational technology and just general education news items. And then in the even number episodes, so next week and last week in episode 120 and next week in episode 122, we have no soapbox moment, but we do have an interview with some awesome educator. And then again, 3 or 4 education or educational technology news items. So again, today we've got a soapbox moment that I'm really excited about, and then some education updates that I'm excited to share with you too. And then hopefully you'll subscribe in whatever podcast app you're in, or YouTube if that's where you're at, so that you can make sure that you hear next week's episode when I have my good friend Brian Carpenter from Fresh Air at 5. You've probably heard him on the show before or on social media, or maybe you already listened to his podcast, on to talk about ed tech tools for having students create visuals. Brian has some great ideas he shares, and we have a great conversation, a lot of fun. So subscribe so that you don't miss it. I also want to note before we get into it that I have transitioned my social media usage and communication over completely to Bluesky. My account is still there on that one other platform, but I'm not interacting or posting there. I do check my notifications, so feel free to reach out there. But the main one I'm leaning into is Bluesky. So if you have things to share from the episode, please do connect with me there. Although I do have stuff going up on TikTok and Instagram Reels and things like that, but Bluesky is my major communication place. One good way to keep up with my content and my ideas and the news that I share here too is also my newsletter, which you could subscribe to on my site, jakemiller.net. I'll try to remember to put that in the show notes too, so that you could subscribe there. One thing you'll want to be tuning into there is that at some point in time, I do hope to be sharing some summer learning opportunities that I'm hoping to make available. We'll see if I pull that off or not, but I'm hoping to do some online courses. We'll see if I can make that happen. If I do, the newsletter will be where you'll hear about that, so make sure you're subscribed for that. I should also note when talking about summer, I do have one thing in Ohio, but I don't have anything else that I'm planning on traveling to and speaking at and doing training at or presenting at or consulting at or anything like that. So I am open to that if you have any need for somebody to come tell cheesy jokes and talk about education and AI and student motivation and personalized learning. I have one awesome one in Columbus in early June that I'm excited about. A couple other local things through my day job, but I'm available. Feel free to reach out. Let's dive into our soapbox moment now. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me just grab my soapbox from over here. Yeah. There we go. That's perfect. Climb up on there. You may have heard me mention our family Roomba before. Mr. Belvedere, our robot vacuum. He's kind of the best. I'm a little obsessed with him. My kids know that I say he's my favorite child. Joking, of course, but yeah. Every few days, I make a little production of picking up stray socks and dog toys, putting chairs on tables, that kind of stuff, making sure the floor is ready for optimal vacuuming performance. Then a few hours later, I check the little dustbin and marvel at how much dirt Mr. Belvedere has collected. Good job, Mr. Belvedere. And inevitably, I tell my wife with great pride, I vacuumed the bedrooms today. It's become a little inside joke. I say it with a smirk. She rolls her eyes, and we both know I did not vacuum anything. Mr. Belvedere did. But the goal was never for me to do the vacuuming, was it? The goal was clean floors. So it doesn't really matter who did the work. As long as the house is clean, we're good. Now, this reminds me of a story I heard recently in a presentation by educator and writer Dave Stuart Jr. He shared an anecdote, one he'd heard from someone else, about learning and effort. And he shared this metaphor that I'm going to paraphrase slightly, but it stuck with me, so I'd like to share it with you. He said something like, let's say I want to get really buff. So I go to the gym and I bring a forklift. I load a bunch of weights onto it and then use the forklift to raise and lower the weights over and over again. And I sat there in the audience on the edge of my seat, waiting for him to say the important thing. I was waiting for him to say, the problem is the goal wasn't to lift the weights. The goal was to get stronger. I think Stuart was being intentional there and letting us fill in the blanks ourselves, but that's the key point, isn't it? The goal wasn't to lift the weights. And this is where Mr. Belvedere, my little Roomba buddy that I just told you about, comes back in. If the goal was for me to burn calories or build muscle or experience the joy of vacuuming, I guess, then outsourcing it to Mr. Belvedere would have been a problem because I couldn't have done those things if Mr. Belvedere did the vacuuming. But if the goal is a clean carpet, no problem at all. Pick up the socks, press start, and let Mr. Belvedere do his thing. The goal is a clean carpet, and that achieves it. Which brings us to what Stuart was actually talking about, AI. And this all reminds me of an amazing article that I read recently by Rick Wormeli. I read it twice, actually. The article is titled, With AI, Let's Keep Students Learning Paramount. I'll be honest, while I loved the article, I really did, there was one paragraph that totally stumped me. I read it, I reread it, I read it really slowly, I read it while squinting my eyes, and I just could not figure out what he was trying to say in this paragraph. So I did what any 21st century educator with a digital assistant would do, right? I opened up ChatGPT, I pasted it in, and I said, what's Wormeli trying to say here? And guess what? It helped. It broke it down, explained it to me. I asked it a few clarifying questions. It answered them clearly, and then I got it. I understood that paragraph and how it connected to the rest of the article. My goal was understanding, and I achieved it. Just like Mr. Belvedere gives me clean carpets, the AI in that situation helped me clean up my comprehension of that article. And it's important to note that the alternative to pasting that paragraph into ChatGPT would have been for me to just accept not understanding the paragraph at all. Going like, oh, well, whatever, I'm just not going to understand this. Not paste it in a ChatGPT because some people think that maybe that's cheating or something. Don't paste it in, and then I don't understand it. In that case, it's a no-brainer. I should seek that AI help, right? Now, if I asked ChatGPT to summarize the entire article for me, that would have been different, I think. I would have missed the nuance in the article. I would have missed the wrestle with the ideas. I would have missed the learning. And I would have missed the little jokes that Wormeli tends to put into his work. But more importantly, I would have missed the opportunity to think really deeply about how AI is used in classrooms. Because when I read that article, my goal wasn't to read the article. It was to learn and to think about AI integration, and ultimately to sharpen my ability and my skills to support educators within this new educational landscape that has AI in it. My goal was to get better at supporting them. The goal wasn't the completion of a task, reading an article. The goal was to get better at something, to get better at supporting educators. The goal wasn't task completion. The goal was growth. My goal was mastery, not just checking a box. So this is the part that I can't stop thinking about in all the discussions about AI, as well as in this article from Wormeli. And honestly, it's where I feel the most fired up. In my 14 years in the classroom full-time, I did what most teachers do. Much of my grading was based on whether students turned something in or not. And when we do that, we shouldn't be surprised when they figure out the easiest way to turn something in. After all, we've made that the goal. If the goal is to turn something in, they're going to find an easy way to turn something in. They're aspiring to turn something in regardless of whether that means copying from a classmate, recycling an old project, or asking AI to do the work. Some students will look for the path of least resistance to completion of the task. It's cause and effect, folks. But when we center growth, when we center learning, when we say the goal isn't to lift the weights, it's to get stronger. When we say the goal isn't to read the article, it's to get better at supporting educators, that changes everything. Students are likely to approach the work differently when they know it's meant to build them, not just check a box. Now, I wish I could say that I made this shift in my own classroom, and I didn't. But now, I'm in the position to help others, including you, make that shift, to help educators rethink what they measure, how they motivate learners, and why they assign what they assign. Along this line of thinking, one of the most compelling ideas in Wormeli's article is his concept of academic cosplay. Now, cosplay, if you're unfamiliar, is short for costume play. It's when fans dress up as characters from anime or comics or games or movies. But Wormeli's not talking about showing up to class dressed like Miss Frizzle or Mr. Feeney or Mrs. Krabappel or Professor Dumbledore. He's talking about students and teachers too, going through the motions of learning without actually doing the thinking. He's talking about dressing up as learners and thinkers with minimal learning and thinking taking place. And this isn't just true when we use AI to do tasks for us. This happens all the times in classrooms. Honestly, guilty as charged. A lot of what I did as a student, and even more embarrassingly, a lot of what I had my students do was academic cosplay. And this was before AI. In 1996, when I was in high school, I earned extra credit in history class by finding articles about historical events online and rewriting them in my own words. Academic cosplay. In 2005, as a math teacher, I'm certain that students were copying homework from each other. Academic cosplay. In 2011, my science students probably swapped review sheets and filled in the answers. Cosplay. In 2013, my STEM students clicked remix on Scratch projects, changed a few features so it looked different, and turned them in as their own. Academic cosplay. In 2021, my CAD students, computer-aided design, they had classmates build SketchUp models for them, and they submitted screenshots as if they'd done the work. Still academic cosplay. The pattern here is clear, and it's one Wormeli has been spotlighting for years, especially in his book, Fair Isn't Always Equal. When we make the goal the completion of a task, turning in the homework, submitting the project, checking the box, we shouldn't be surprised when students find the fastest path to that goal. And this isn't just anecdotal. Research on performance-oriented goals, one thing that I'm really fascinated about is performance and mastery-oriented goals. And research on performance-oriented goals tells us the same thing. If the goal is performance, completing a task, getting a grade, so on, some students will pursue it by any means necessary, even if that means cutting corners, copying, or outsourcing the thinking to AI altogether. If the goal is just to wear the costume, some kids will wear the costume. And if that's the goal that we put in front of them, we can't be shocked when students come to school dressed as learners. But if the goal is to learn the math, to understand the science, to design the game, to think like a civil engineer, well then, it's a little different, isn't it? Is the goal to lift the weights or to get stronger? So mastery-oriented goals, like getting stronger, are when we're getting better at something, seeking mastery of something, right? Those yield different results than performance-oriented goals, like lifting the weights. The goal is not completing the worksheet. The goal is learning. Now, I don't want to be unrealistic here, okay? Kids are kids. Teenagers are teenagers. And growing up today in the age of cell phones and Snapchat and TikTok and viral memes, that creates challenges that can't be overcome, let's say, by simply changing the orientation of the goals and the tasks that we put in front of our learners. That alone can't remedy what our world is like for kids nowadays, but it's a step in the right direction. Because when learners allow AI to do the thinking for them, it changes everything. It changes the trajectory of their learning. It shifts how they grow, how they learn, how they see themselves, and how they think about AI. Now, I'm going to take a little unplanned tangent here. So the Wormeli article shared a quote that really hit me. Hold on, let me find it. Here it is. So this quote, it made me deeply process the fact that the use of AI to outsource thinking, it doesn't just hurt the students, it hurts the educators too. So Wormeli pointed this out by quoting college instructor and writer Eric Ofgang's piece called 5 Things About Using AI for Writing That I Wish Enthusiasts Would Remember. I haven't read the whole article yet. I've read these quotes. Quotes are great. I should probably go read the whole article now. But Ofgang said, I regularly have the unsettling experience of suspecting human-generated writing was actually machine-written. Until it happens to you, it can be difficult to fully grasp how unsettling and demoralizing it is to come across AI-generated work in your classes. When you suspect a paper is AI-generated but can't prove it, you have to spend time grading inauthentic work and pretending this feedback matters to the student. AI submissions can also infect a whole batch of papers, making you wonder unfairly about ones that were actually generated by humans. It's a new kind of stress that just wasn't a part of the job a year ago. Woo! That's tough. That's not just about academic integrity or academic honesty or pedagogy or learning. That's about emotional exhaustion. This is what it feels like to be a teacher doing the work, reading student writing, offering thoughtful feedback on that writing, and realizing this might not even be real. And if it's not real, does any of that feedback even matter? Wow. That's not just frustrating. That's demoralizing. It's draining. And it undermines one of the most meaningful parts of teaching. The relationship that happens through feedback within the learning journey that good teachers are riding on alongside their students. So Wormeli also pointed out how Ofgang discussed the importance of writing as a tool for thinking and a tool for communication, which is something that Adam Sparks and I discussed in a previous episode. Writing isn't just a way to show learning. It is learning. It's how we make sense of the world and how we connect to one another. And that matters especially in middle school. Now, that came up because this article was in AMLE, the Association of Middle Level Educators, I think it is. So he's talking about what happens when AI impacts middle school learning. And he dives into some brain science. Now, let me point out here, some of the brain science in the article kind of made my eyes glaze over. I'm sorry, Mr. Wormeli, or if you're hearing this, excuse me, I'm sorry. That's actually where I needed to paste a paragraph in the ChatGPT because I was like, what? What is he saying here? What's his brain science telling me? But there was one line in particular that I want to zero in on that he shared. He said, in fact, middle school students are unusually open to learning challenges and creativity, functionally craving robust, active engagement with the world, and yes, with topics we teach in middle school. That's it. That's like an invitation. They crave challenge. Cognitively, creatively, their brains crave it. Even when they don't show it because they're kids, even when they roll their eyes, even middle schoolers' brains crave challenging thinking. Now, some of you are raising your hand and saying, not the middle schoolers I teach. And I get it. The apathy struggle is real. Most of my classroom years were with 8th graders. I know apathy runs rampant in those classrooms. And in some cases, no matter how much we do, it is nearly impossible to motivate a subset of our students. Hopefully, it's just a small handful. But if we don't try, it's inevitable that they'll outsource their thinking to AI, along with other things, right? And the shift that needs to happen is focusing on growth and learning, focusing on mastery And as I mentioned earlier, mastery-oriented goals. Giving our learners some autonomy and some choice, and helping them see that we're trying to help them get stronger, not just lift the weights up and down. But before I wrap up, some real talk. If you read the article, which I recommend you do because Wormeli does a fantastic job in it, you'll likely agree with me on this point. Some of Wormeli's suggestions feel a little utopian, like when he says that teachers should grade everything themselves rather than using AI, or when he says that teachers should not rely on AI to draft feedback or plan lessons or support differentiation. Sure, in a perfect world. Listen, I agree with him in the terms of impact and best practices. Yes, quality teacher-generated feedback and design are better than having it done by AI. But in practice, teachers are overwhelmed and have finite amounts of time to do their work. And if the alternative is not doing some of those things at all, or doing less of them because there's no time or capacity, then yeah, AI might be the better move. So, while I agree, a little utopian there. Because in the end, it all comes back to the goal. What's the actual goal? For our learners, if it's just about submitting something, any something, AI, it's like a perfect forklift, right? But if the goal is to think deeply or build skills or get smarter or grow stronger or get better at something, that's work the student needs to do. And that's the spot that Wormeli and I most certainly agree on there. And the same is true for what the teachers are doing. What's the actual goal? Sometimes it's essential for us to do the work. And other times, I think it's okay for AI to help. But we have to think about that first. What's the actual goal? Back to that idea of academic cosplay earlier. Is AI letting us dress up as an educator? Or is it helping us be an even better educator? Is AI letting our students dress up as learners? Or is it helping them learn more deeply? I think sometimes it does one and sometimes it does the other, and we have to think about it each and every time we lean on it. Just like having Mr. Belvedere do my vacuuming, sometimes it helps accomplish more and do better. But just like having a forklift lift the weights, sometimes it robs us of the actual growth that was the goal. So, what's the actual goal? Before we jump into today's edition of EdTech and education news and updates, a quick reminder, if something in today's segment makes you go, ooh, I need to try that, or not for me, or yeah, but I've got a better option for that. I don't mean to mock you with those voices. I really am interested if you have one of those three thoughts. Just let me know. I'd love to hear your insights. Post on Bluesky using hashtag #EDUDuctTape or leave a message at speakpipe.com/EDUDuctTape. You might just hear your voice in the show. So first up, AI isn't going away, as we just talked about, so let's lean in. Common Sense Media, yep, the same folks who we usually turn to decide if that Adam Sandler movie is really okay for our 11-year-old. Common Sense Media is stepping up their EdTech game with a free course titled ChatGPT Foundations for K-12 Educators. It looks like a beginner-friendly course that you may want to share with the AI newbies in your school. So my impression is that it won't be intimidating or overwhelming and will break down what AI and generative tools like ChatGPT actually are. It says it covers things like how ChatGPT thinks, thinks in air quotes because it's not actually thinking, but I digress. Real teaching use cases to help you work smarter, not harder. And third, how to use AI tools safely and purposefully in school settings. Seems like a really solid option to build confidence and fill in those early knowledge gaps with AI. So I would consider recommending it to the folks around you. I have not taken the course, but if you have, or if a colleague of yours tries it out, I'd love to hear your take. Should we be recommending this to our colleagues? Let me know on Bluesky with hashtag #EDUDuctTape or at speakpipe.com/EDUDuctTape. Next up, bulk grading just got real. Okay, this one's been out for a couple months, but if you missed the memo, or just didn't notice it yet, you'll want to check this out. So Google Classroom added something that I've been waiting for since back when Lil Nas X was topping the charts with Old Town Road. A new grade all feature in the gradebook in Google Classroom. And yep, it's exactly what it sounds like, and just as easy as it sounds. You can now assign the same grade to every student at once. So if you're grading something quick and binary, like either yes or no, like maybe an exit ticket or a warm-up or a did you actually turn this in kind of assignment, you no longer have to click through every single student submission. Just head to Gradebook, click the three-dot menu on an assignment, and choose Grade All. From there, you can punch in a bulk grade like zeros, 100s, whatever, override any existing grades if you want to, and even return them all automatically. Now, earlier in this episode, I mentioned that grading based on completion isn't what I'd consider a best practice. So keep that little nugget in mind when you go to use this. But still, this can definitely save time. For example, if you're assessing whether students have mastered a skill and all but 2 have nailed it, this lets you give most students full credit in one go and then just tweak those few who need a different score. Efficiency for the win, for sure. No, it's not going to change your life. I don't think it is, at least, but it might buy you a few extra minutes, maybe to do the Wordle or take a bathroom break or maybe just take a deep breath. Let me know how you're using that bonus time on Bluesky with hashtag EDUDuctTape, or drop me a message at speakpipe.com/EDUDuctTape. I am genuinely curious if you've saved a few minutes with this. How are you using those minutes? Next up, a tool that's familiar to many of you just got a fresh new name and some fun new features too. So if you've ever looked into giving students a chance to create their own VR or AR experiences, you've likely heard of CoSpaces, a platform where kids can build 3D worlds and program interactions within them using block-based code. And if you haven't heard of it, well, it's probably the biggest name in virtual and augmented reality for schools. But here's the catch. You just heard of it in time to learn its new name. You learned about CoSpaces, and now it's no longer called CoSpaces. It just got rebranded as Delightex. The name change comes with a fresh look, but it looks like there's more going on than just a logo update. A recent blog post highlights a bunch of new features worth knowing about. First up, the gallery. So they've revamped it so it's easier to explore student-created projects. You can now filter them by subject or grade level or coding language or even the type of project. And teachers can also tag their projects, which makes finding some inspiration or even your own work a whole lot easier. Next, they made login simpler. So Delightex now works with ClassLink SSO. That means single sign-on. So if your district uses ClassLink, students and teachers can get into Delightex, again, formerly CoSpaces, with just one click. No juggling usernames, no forgotten passwords, just click and go. One of the flashier updates is Skybox AI integration. I had not heard of Skybox AI. It's a partnership with a tool called Blockade Labs that lets you, or more importantly, your learners, generate 360-degree environments from text prompts. That is wild. So a student could type something like alien planet with floating islands and boom, instant immersive backdrop. AI is over here blowing my mind again. It's crazy. And then there's the Objaverse. There are over 43,000 objects. Get it? Objects? Objaverse? Stretch on that name there. Anyway, students can search and drag models straight into their projects. We're talking cartoon characters, cars, a dancing cat, whatever fuels the creativity for them. It's free for everyone right now, but will eventually be a pro-only feature. And finally, speaking of pro-only features, there's the Teachers Collections option. This lets you organize projects into folders, share and edit things collaboratively, and even access a version history. Perfect for co-planning or updating older projects without starting from scratch. So while I haven't used CoSpaces and I don't currently use Delightex, I know some of you do. Or maybe you've got a colleague who does, or a colleague who's been looking for a creative way to mix coding and 3D design and storytelling. Does that sound awesome? Anyhow, if that's you or your colleague, or if your students are already creating this space, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the new features. Are they as awesome as they sound? Which ones have you tried? Which one's your favorite? Let me know over on Bluesky with hashtag EDUDuctTape, or send me a quick message at speakpipe.com/EDUDuctTape. And finally, today's non-ed tech nugget is not new, but it hit me like it was. So I stumbled across a TED Talk recently that I had somehow missed, and honestly, it should be required viewing for all educators and parents. It's called How to Raise Successful Kids Without Overparenting, and it's by Julie Lythcott-Hames. I apologize if I pronounced her last name right. I don't think they say it at the beginning of the TED Talk. Anyhow, Julie is a former dean of freshmen at Stanford, so she's seen firsthand what happens when kids arrive at college overly managed and underprepared. And in this talk, she calls out the culture of micromanagement and overachievement and tying success to things like grades and test scores. And she makes a beautiful case for stepping back and showing kids unconditional love instead. There's one line that completely floored me. I realized that my kids aren't bonsai trees. They're wildflowers of unknown genus and species. I mean, come on. That metaphor alone is worth the watch. Julie mixes warmth and insight and humor so well, and while the talk is aimed at parents, it resonates deeply with educators, especially those of us trying to balance rigor, care, and autonomy in the classroom. If you've already seen it, what stuck with you? And if you haven't, I do recommend carving out that 15 minutes or so to give it a watch. Then tell me, what was your favorite quote? Head over to Bluesky using hashtag #EduDuctTape or drop me a message at speakpipe.com/EduDuctTape. I really would love to hear your take. Okay, that is it for this round of EdTech and education news and updates. Got thoughts on any of today's topics or on today's Soapbox episode? Is there a tool you're using differently or something you'd add in to what I shared today or something I should have included or an alternative that you think's a better option? Or do you have some takeaways from today's Soapbox moment you want to share? Hit me up on social media. Again, I prefer hashtag #EduDuctTape on Bluesky or on the SpeakPipe page. I love hearing how you're using these updates and your thoughts from the Soapbox moment as well. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for everything that you do for your learners. And I will see you, I'll be in your eardrums about a week from now. I hope you're here. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Please consider rating and reviewing the show on your favorite podcast app. Hashtag EduDuctTape.
But here's the catch. If you just heard of it from the... But here's the catch. You just heard of it just in time.